everyone, it's Melissa from Porch Swing Creations. Today I'm going to share with you a sponging technique I call the Northern Lights. It's a pretty simple technique once you break down the steps, and you get really wow results, as you can see by this card. If you've ever seen the Northern Lights in person, it's pretty close resemblance, so let's get started and I'll show you how to do this. First, you're going to need a piece of Whisper White cardstock. Now, I've already gone ahead and I've used the Window Frame Collection framelits. This is the second to largest, so I've already gone ahead and cut that. So now you're going to need a few different colors of ink. So the first color ink that we're going to start with is Daffodil Delight. And just go ahead and ink up your sponge fairly heavily. I'm going to warn you not to use a pouncing technique when you do this technique. You're going to use more of a rubbing motion. So we're just going to go ahead and randomly apply. You don't want to do a straight line. Just add color throughout. There's really no rhyme or reason. The lights always look different. They change continuously, so you'll never get the same look twice when you do this technique. So there we go. We've already added the Daffodil Delight. The next color that we're going to use is Old Olive. Now with the Old Olive, you kind of want to follow the same lines that you've already laid down with the Daffodil Delight. So we're just going to kind of follow in the same rubbing motion. It's okay to blend your colors a little bit and go over top of what you've already done. Okay, there you have the Old Olive. The next color we're going to use is Tempting Turquoise. And here you just want to begin filling in a little bit more of the white space. Again, it's okay to start blending your colors together. They kind of start to take shape. You can go as little as much as you like of each of these colors. There's, again, no real rule. There you go. So we have the Tempting Turquoise. The next color we're going to use is Rich Razzleberry. And the Rich Razzleberry to me is the one that really starts adding the punch. So go ahead and load that up. With the Rich Razzleberry, you just kind of want to start filling in what's remaining of the white space. Again, blending over top of some of the colors that you've already put down. Notice that you're starting to get a few different colors on top of your colors that you've already blended, which is what adds a lot of uniqueness to what you're doing. Okay, so we've pretty much filled in the white space. Now you're probably thinking, wow, that doesn't look at all like the Northern Lights. But we're going to start adding the definition using Midnight Muse. And this is where the lights will really start to take their shape, and you're going to start doing the defining and the kind of finishing touches. So we're just going to go ahead and load up our sponge with that Midnight Muse. And I suggest starting in the center and working outwards. So you're going to kind of want to follow some of the darker spots. You want to leave these brighter areas that have the Daffodil Delight, maybe the Tempting Turquoise. You want to leave those quite vibrant. So we're just going to start in the center, and we're going to start working outwards and just kind of building your color, following some of the lines. You can see here it starts to give it a little bit of shade, really starts to kind of define the lines. This is where you get to pick kind of how you want the lights to really look. So again, I'm leaving some of those brighter spots quite bright. The darker areas, I'm going over it, make it a little bit darker. This is where you can kind of get lost in the process, I find. I spend a lot of time putting this color down. But don't get too hung up, pardon me. You're going to find that it's a technique that you can't do wrong. Little practice. Okay. Quite happy with that. Just kind of shape that one off a little bit more. Okay. The final color that we're going to add is basic black. And this just further defines what you've already just done with that Midnight Muse. But this is going to add the real depth to the sky, because you'll find that the night sky is more black than it is blue, especially when the lights are dancing. And again, just follow some of those lines that you've laid down with the Midnight Muse. You don't want to cover all the Midnight Muse. You want some of that to still be poking through, but overall you want to get quite a dark sky out of this. And again, just lightly blend upwards. I started working from the center out again. Okay. How pretty. Such a simple technique once you break it down. It looks a lot more complicated than it is when you see the finished product. Okay, so there we have that. Now for a final touch, we're going to be using the Lovely as a Tree stamp set. And this is just the row of trees that comes in the set. So we're going to load that up with basic black ink. And I'm going to stamp that quite low along the bottom of my cardstock. I'm doing this simply because I want a lot of the sky to show through. It's what I want to take center stage with this technique, of course. So I'm going to lay the trees quite low to the ground here. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that there. Give that a good press. Okay. Now we'll go back in with your basic black sponge, and we're just going to complete the ground line. We're going to fill that in with the black ink. There we go. Okay. Now the final thing that we're going to do to finish off this night sky is we're going to add a few stars with a white gel pen. This just further adds a little bit of dimension, a little bit of extra something to the sky. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that our ink is running. And then it's just as simple as dotting the sky. You can see right away how much that helped everything pop, brightened everything up a little bit. So go ahead and add as many or as few as you like. I like a lot. Don't forget, layer a few so that they look like they're poking through the trees a little bit. Okay, there we go. So now we're just going to finish up the card. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've cut a piece of Primrose Petals cardstock. This one measures 5.5 inches wide by the full 11-inch piece of cardstock. And I've ran this through the Big Shot using the largest window framelit. And what I've done is on the fold line on my cardstock, I've gone ahead and laid the framelit down so that it overhung just slightly. And of course, once you run this through the Big Shot, this isn't going to cut. So that's what's going to give you the fold in your card. Now the other thing that I should mention about this card is that, of course, because of this rounded bottom piece, it isn't going to sit flat on your tabletop. It's going to want to roll to either one of these points. So the easiest way to fix that and not interfere with the face of your card is to flip the card over, and on the back I've gone ahead and scored from this point to this point, and then I've just folded that tab back. So now when you go ahead and set this on your tabletop, this piece is going to kind of act like a little easel, and it's going to make sure that your card sits right flat in the center portion of that circle. The other thing that I've done is I've embossed this with the honeycomb folder. This came out in the Spring Mini catalog. Now I will warn you, when you're doing a card of this size, the embossing folder isn't large enough to cover the entire front of the card. So what you have to do is emboss twice. So I've gone ahead and I've laid it in there. You can see this part won't get embossed. I've ran that through the Big Shot. It's gone ahead and embossed it. I've moved down the folder just slightly, realigned all the image, and then I've ran it through a second time, and that's what gives me a fully embossed card. From here, it's as simple as adding a few dimensionals to the back of your image, layering that on top. And then I've taken a piece of basic black ribbon and I've made a bow out of it. I've added a glue dot to the back. Center that onto the bottom portion of your card, and you are done. You've created your first Northern Lights card. I hope you've enjoyed this technique. I really encourage you to give it a try. It's a really fun technique, a simple technique, and like I said, it gives you really wow results. There's so much you can do with this. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, you can check out my website as well. It's at www.porchswingcreations.com for a few more tutorials. Thanks!